She married a poor human taxi driver to escape a powerful alien lord. What she didn't know was that the man behind the steering wheel controlled the trade routes of half the galaxy. And the moment they threatened her, the universe quietly began to stop. If you enjoy stories where humanity wins through intelligence, patience, and quiet dominance, where power hides behind humility, then subscribe now. These HFY stories prove one truth again and again. Never underestimate humans, especially the ones who don't look powerful at all. Neo Mumbai never truly slept. It only changed rhythms. At 3 in the morning, the lower transit lanes hummed with cargo haulers and autonomous freight pods, their gravitic fields shimmering faint blue against the rain-slick streets. Above them, neon towers pierced the clouds like glowing spines, stacked with balconies, markets, and habitation rings where humans and aliens live side by side, uneasy, polite, and rarely equal. Arav Malhotra guided his taxi through traffic with one hand resting loosely on the wheel, eyes calm, posture relaxed. His vehicle was old by city standards. Manual controls, reinforced plating, no flashy holo ads running along the sides. It blended into the city the way he preferred to blend into life. Invisible. Traffic density up 12%, the taxi's console chimed. Arav glanced at the projected map, then smiled faintly. "No," he murmured, tapping a side panel. The system recalculated instantly, rerouting through a service artery most drivers never noticed. The taxi flowed smoothly while others slowed. He drove like that every night. Quiet, efficient, unremarkable. To the city, he was just another human behind a wheel, ferrying executives, dock workers, and the occasional off-world visitor who preferred ground travel over air lanes. No one looked twice at him. No one ever asked questions. That suited him fine. The pickup request came without priority tags, but something about it made him pause. Coordinates blinked on the map near a diplomatic residential zone. High security, restricted access. Odd for a standard fare. He accepted anyway. Minutes later, his taxi stopped beneath a towering spire of white alloy and living crystal, its architecture unmistakably alien. Lyrathai design favored elegance over efficiency, beauty over practicality. Arav exhaled slowly as the passenger door slid open. She stepped inside like a storm wrapped in silk. Her skin shimmered faintly with opalescent hues, soft blues and violets shifting with her emotions. Tall, graceful, unmistakably Lyrathai. Her eyes flicked toward the rear window the moment she sat down, scanning the street with sharp, anxious focus. "Drive," she said, voice controlled but tight. "Anywhere. Now." Arav met her gaze briefly in the rearview mirror. Fear. Calculated, restrained, but real. "Destination?" he asked evenly. "Away," she replied. "Fast." Behind them, 2 sleek hover vehicles drifted out from the spire's shadows, their lights flaring. Arav nodded once. "Seat belt." The taxi surged forward, not recklessly, not fast enough to draw attention, but with a smooth certainty that threaded through traffic like water finding cracks in stone. He didn't increase speed. He changed flow. The pursuing vehicles hesitated, forced to slow as municipal freight lanes unexpectedly reconfigured. Construction barriers descended where none had been moments earlier. A patrol drone diverted them for an inspection that technically shouldn't have existed. Inside the taxi, silence stretched. "You altered the traffic grid," the woman said finally, suspicion edging her tone. Arav shrugged. "City does that sometimes." She studied him, then let out a slow breath. "You're not afraid." "Of traffic?" he asked. "No." That earned the faintest flicker of amusement across her luminous features, gone almost as soon as it appeared. "My name is Sailira Kinthara," she said. "And I am inconveniently important." Arav nodded as if she'd told him the weather. "Arav. Taxi driver." Her gaze lingered on him longer this time. "You don't react the way most humans do." "I've met important people," he replied. "They usually want the same thing as everyone else. And that is to go where they choose." The taxi exited the main lanes and slipped into a lower district, lights dimmer, buildings closer together. The pursuing vehicles were gone now, lost to delays, inspections, and bureaucratic friction that worked far better than force ever could. Celira finally relaxed back into the seat. "You don't know who I am," she said. "I know you didn't want to be followed," Ariv answered. "That's enough." She hesitated. Then, quietly, "They're trying to marry me." He glanced at her again, this time with curiosity. "That sounds traditional." "For my people," she said bitterly. "For politics. For control." Her fingers clenched in the fabric of her cloak. "The one chosen believes ownership and affection are the same thing." Ariv said nothing. He let the silence invite more. "If I return," Celira continued, "my choices end. My work ends. My life becomes a symbol instead of a person." She laughed softly, without humor. "So I ran. And now I'm sitting in a human taxi, trusting my fate to someone the galaxy barely notices." The taxi slowed at a red light. Ariv stopped completely, obeying the signal with deliberate care. "You chose well," he said. She looked at him sharply. "Why?" "Because people who don't want attention usually understand its cost." The light turned green. They moved again. Celira watched the city blur past. Humans on sidewalks. Vendors closing stalls. Dockworkers laughing despite exhaustion. No one bowed. No one stared. "How is it," she asked quietly, "that humans seem so content with so little?" Ariv smiled, small and genuine. "We learned a long time ago that loud power attracts predators." She frowned. "And quiet power?" "Quiet power," he said, guiding the taxi into another seamless turn, "keeps the lights on while everyone argues about who owns them." Something shifted in her expression. Not understanding, not yet, but curiosity. Outside, Neo Mumbai breathed on, unaware that somewhere within its endless arteries, a choice was forming. One that would ripple outward through trade lanes, councils, and empires. Ariv pulled the taxi to a stop beneath a modest residential tower far from embassies and aristocratic zones. "We're here," he said. Celira stared at the building, then back at him. "I don't even know where here is." "Somewhere quiet," Ariv replied. "Somewhere they won't look first." She opened the door, paused, then said softly, "You don't know what you've involved yourself in." Ariv met her eyes, calm as ever. "I have a rough idea." As she stepped out, neither of them noticed the unseen systems already adjusting, routes recalculating, permissions shifting, contingencies waking from dormancy. The galaxy hadn't felt it yet, but it soon would. The building Ariv had chosen was unremarkable in the way only human structures could be. Plain concrete, narrow balconies, soft amber lighting in the corridors. No guards. No insignias. No hovering drones announcing authority. Just people coming home from late shifts, doors opening and closing, life continuing without ceremony. Celira stood at the entrance longer than necessary, her senses stretched outward, waiting for alarms, trackers, pursuit. Nothing came. "This place has no diplomatic shielding," she said carefully. "It doesn't need it," Ariv replied as he locked the taxi and motioned her inside. "No one important lives here." Her eyes flicked to him. "You do." He smiled faintly but didn't respond. Inside, the lift hummed as it carried them upward. Celira watched the floor numbers rise, her tension slowly giving way to exhaustion. When the doors opened, the hallway smelled faintly of spice and recycled air. A child laughed somewhere behind a wall. A neighbor argued over a cooking pot. It was peaceful. Ariv unlocked his apartment and stepped aside. "You can stay tonight. No questions. Tomorrow, you decide what you want to do." She hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The apartment was small but meticulously organized. No luxury. No alien artifacts. Just books, a worn sofa, a table set for one. A window overlooked the city, its endless lights stretching to the horizon. Celira's shoulders slumped as the door closed behind her. For the first time since she'd entered the taxi, she allowed herself to breathe fully. "They'll come for me," she said quietly. "Lord Zyril doesn't lose." Ariv poured water into 2 glasses and handed her one. Everyone loses eventually. You don't understand, she said, gripping the glass too tightly. He's not just wealthy. He's entrenched. His influence reaches councils, trade guilds, enforcement fleets. He believes I belong to him. Ariv leaned against the counter, studying her, not as a political asset, not as a symbol, but as a person cornered by power. Then we should make sure you don't, he said. She laughed softly, a brittle sound. How? I can't hide forever. I can't fight him. And if I return, I disappear. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. There is one option, she said at last, eyes lifting to meet his. A legal one. Ariv waited. Under Galactic Accord, Sailira continued, marriage supersedes aristocratic claims. Once bonded, I cannot be compelled into another union without my consent. Even Lord Zyril cannot override that. Ariv's brow furrowed. You want to marry someone else? Yes. Her voice steadied as she spoke. A non-aristocrat. A civilian. Someone without political value. Understanding settled slowly. You want to marry me. The words hung in the air. Ariv didn't laugh. He didn't recoil. He simply considered the idea with the same calm deliberation he applied to everything else. You don't know me, he said. I know enough, Sailira replied. You're human. You have no titles, no holdings, no leverage they'd want. You're safe. He tilted his head. You assume poverty makes someone harmless. She flushed slightly, color rippling across her skin. I assume honesty follows simplicity. Ariv looked away, out the window, where cargo lights traced invisible paths across the sky. Somewhere above, trade lanes pulsed with quiet precision. This wouldn't be real, he said finally. You know that. It would be legal, she answered. And temporary. Once I'm free, once the pressure ends, we can dissolve it quietly. You lose nothing. That wasn't true. He knew it. But he also knew the alternatives. How long? He asked. Long enough for him to give up, she said. Or for the galaxy to forget. Ariv exhaled slowly. He could already see the ripples forming, the legal notices, the reactions, the quiet recalibrations. He could also see the danger. Marriage, he said, draws attention. Less than refusal, she countered. Especially if the spouse is unremarkable. He met her gaze again. There was fear there. And resolve. And something else. Hope, fragile but stubborn. Why trust a stranger? He asked. Sailira swallowed. Because strangers haven't tried to own me yet. The room fell silent. Ariv straightened. If we do this, there are rules. She nodded quickly. Of course. First, he said, you tell me everything. No secrets that could get either of us killed. Agreed. Second, you follow my lead in public. Humans survive by blending in. She managed a small smile. I think I can manage that. And third, he said, voice firm, if this becomes too dangerous, we stop. Immediately. She hesitated only a moment before nodding. Understood. Ariv walked to the console by the wall and activated a secure channel. No flashy holograms appeared, just clean text and biometric prompts. Sailira watched, curiosity flickering. You have access to civil registries. I drive a taxi, he said mildly. People forget things in the back seat, including credentials. That earned a quiet laugh. The process was simple. Names entered. Species confirmed. Consent verified. A brief pause as the system cross-checked interstellar law. Then a tone chimed. Union registered. Sailira stared at the confirmation, disbelief washing over her. That's it. That's it, Ariv said, shutting down the console. She sank onto the sofa, stunned. I'm married. To a taxi driver, he replied. She looked up at him, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time. "You don't seem surprised." "I am," he said. "Just not in the way you expect." Her gaze softened. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You've given me my life back." He nodded once. "For now." Neither of them noticed the alert that rippled silently through aristocratic networks minutes later. Status change detected. Subject: Celera Kinthara Union registered. Human spouse. In a tower far above another world, Lord Zyril Viaketh read the notice slowly, then crushed the tablet in his hand. "A human," he snarled. Back in Neo Mumbai, Ariv poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to his wife. Temporary, legal, and already far more dangerous than she realized. Outside, the city continued its quiet hum. And somewhere deep within human-controlled systems, dormant contingencies began to wake. Lord Zyril Viaketh did not shout. Shouting was for those who lacked power. He stood in the center of his private observatory, a cathedral of glass and starfire orbiting the cerulean gas giant Vorthane. Beyond the transparent walls, the planet storms churned in endless spirals, violent, beautiful, obedient to physics. Zyril preferred things that way. Predictable. The shattered remains of the data tablet lay at his feet, already dissolving into reclamation particles. The marriage notice still burned in his mind, every word an insult carved in law. Union registered. Human spouse. "A taxi driver," he said softly, tasting the phrase with contempt. Across the room his aide, an insectoid being whose carapace bore the sigils of Zyril's house, shifted nervously. "The registration is valid, my lord. Under Galactic Accord." "I know the Accord," Zyril interrupted, voice calm but razor-edged. "I helped shape it." He turned, pale eyes reflecting starlight. "What I want to know is how a Lyrathai noble thought she could humiliate me with a human." The aide hesitated. "Humans are legally troublesome." Zyril's lips curved into a thin smile. "Then we trouble them back." He moved to the central console, fingers gliding across hollow interfaces that controlled fleets, investments, and influence webs spanning dozens of systems. Names scrolled past: shipping guilds, enforcement captains, council liaisons. "Begin with pressure," Zyril said. "Nothing crude. Audit requests. Residency challenges. Let the human feel the weight of attention." "Yes, my lord." "And locate him," Zyril added. "I want everything. Financials. Associates. Habits." The aide bowed. "At once." In Neo Mumbai, the pressure arrived quietly. Ariv noticed it before breakfast. The city woke around him as usual, vendors setting up stalls, transit lanes activating, the smell of fresh bread drifting through open windows. Celera stood by the counter, studying a human tea kettle as if it were a puzzle. "It sings," she said, startled, as steam whistled from the spout. "It's happy," Ariv replied, pouring water into cups. "Means it's working." She smiled faintly, then frowned as a notification chimed on her wristband. "I've been flagged for a residency review." Ariv took a sip of tea. "That was fast. You sound unsurprised." "I am," he said. "Just not confused." Within hours, inspectors arrived, polite, impeccably legal, and clearly out of place in the modest building. They asked questions that skirted the edge of harassment without crossing it. They requested documents already filed. They scheduled follow-ups that conflicted with other appointments. Celera watched it unfold with growing unease. "This is his doing." "Yes," Ariv agreed. "And you're calm." "I've seen worse," he said, guiding an inspector toward the door with practiced courtesy. By midday, the first financial inconvenience hit. Ariv's taxi service account flagged a compliance issue, routine, resolvable, but inconvenient. By evening, Celera's research stipend was delayed pending review. None of it was overt. All of it was deliberate. Lord Zyril was squeezing. In his observatory, Zyril reviewed reports with satisfaction. "The human's income stream is unstable," his aide reported. "Minor disruptions only, but enough to apply stress." Good, Zyril said. And his response? The aide hesitated. There has been none. Zyril frowned. None. No legal appeals. No complaints. He continues his occupation. Zyril's smile faded slightly. Increase the pressure. Deny permits. Freeze secondary accounts. Yes, my lord. Ariv drove his taxi through the evening rush as if nothing had changed. He greeted passengers. He followed traffic laws. He listened more than he spoke. But beneath the surface, the city's invisible currents shifted. A shipping firm loyal to Zyril experienced an unexpected routing delay. Nothing dramatic, just enough to miss a docking window. A customs clearance took longer than usual. A maintenance drone flagged a minor safety issue that required inspection. Each incident alone meant nothing. Together, they formed friction. Celira noticed patterns where others would have seen coincidence. Your city is responsive, she said that night, watching news feeds scroll across the wall display. Things change quickly. Ariv shrugged. Humans like efficiency. That's not what I mean, she said slowly. I've seen bureaucratic pressure before. This feels redirected. He met her gaze. You're perceptive. She studied him, curiosity sharpening. What aren't you telling me? Not yet, he said gently. But soon. On Vorthane, Lord Zyril's irritation grew. My logistics partners are complaining, he snapped, pacing the observatory. Delays. Audits. Who is responsible? The aide checked data streams. The disruptions appear systemic. No single source. Zyril stopped. Humans. The word carried weight now. Not contempt, but suspicion. Find the human, Zyril ordered. I want leverage. Family. Debts. Something. The aide hesitated longer this time. There is very little data, my lord. No significant holdings. No visible network. Zyril's eyes narrowed. No one is that empty. That night, the first threat arrived. Not a weapon. Not an assassin. A message. It appeared on Ariv's console as he closed the taxi for the night, encrypted but unmistakable in origin. Dissolve the Union. Return the asset. This is your only warning. Celira read it over his shoulder, her skin flushing with anger. He thinks I'm property. He thinks many things, Ariv said, deleting the message. And you? She asked. What do you think? I think, he replied, that he's used to people panicking. She turned to face him fully. Ah, you? Ariv smiled, calm and unreadable. No. Outside, the city lights flickered as a freight convoy altered course, responding to a routing change authorized by an entity Lord Zyril had never bothered to notice. In the vast web of interstellar trade, small adjustments were being made. Quietly. Precisely. And far above it all, Lord Zyril Viaketh stood beneath the stars, unaware that for the first time in his long, privileged life, he had chosen the wrong human to threaten. The first attempt on Celira's life didn't look like an attack. That was what made it dangerous. The morning began like any other. Neo-Mumbai's skies were a muted silver as weather drones dispersed overnight smog, letting filtered sunlight spill between the towers. Ariv stood at the counter assembling breakfast, flatbread warming, tea steeping, while Celira reviewed translated research notes on her wrist display. For a brief moment, life felt almost ordinary. Then every system in the apartment paused. Not shut down. Not alarmed. Just hesitated. Ariv's eyes lifted instantly. Stay here, he said, already moving. What is it? Celira asked, her pulse quickening. Nothing, he replied. Which usually means something. He opened the window and leaned out slightly, scanning the street below. Traffic flowed, pedestrians moved, but there was a subtle misalignment. A delivery drone hovered too long before correcting course. A transit signal blinked twice before stabilizing. Someone had nudged the city. Ariv tapped his wrist once, barely perceptible. Somewhere far away, A system acknowledged the input. "Get your cloak," he said. "We're going out." They were halfway down the street when the accident happened. A cargo hauler several blocks ahead suddenly veered, its gravitic stabilizers flickering. To any observer, it looked like a mechanical failure, rare, but not impossible. The vehicle lurched toward the pedestrian lane where Celira walked. Time stretched. Ariv didn't shout. He didn't grab her dramatically. He simply stepped sideways, one hand firm on her arm, guiding her out of the path with practiced ease. The hauler slammed into a reinforced barrier instead, its momentum dissipated by emergency fields that snapped into place a fraction of a second too early to be coincidence. Silence followed. Then noise. Shouts. Sirens. Celira stared at the wreckage, her skin shimmering violently as fear surged. "That was not an accident," Ariv finished calmly. Emergency drones descended, lights flashing. Human responders arrived within seconds, efficient and composed. They cordoned off the area, rerouted foot traffic, reassured onlookers. Ariv and Celira were guided aside, unnoticed among dozens of witnesses. "That was meant for me," Celira whispered. "Yes. And you knew." "I suspected," he said. "Now I'm sure." Across the city, Lord Zyril Vieketh received a report. "The asset remains alive," his aide said carefully. Zyril's jaw tightened. "Explain." "The incident failed. Emergency systems engaged prematurely." Zyril turned slowly. "Prematurely?" "Yes, my lord. Municipal safeguards triggered earlier than expected." Zyril's gaze hardened. "Humans." Back in the apartment, Celira paced, agitation rippling across her luminous skin. "He tried to kill me in public." "He tried to make it look random," Ariv corrected. "That's his style." She stopped, facing him. "And your style?" "Because this," she gestured toward the window, the distant sirens, "this doesn't feel random at all." Ariv met her gaze. For a moment, the mask slipped, not revealing everything, but enough. "You're starting to see the pattern," he said. "The delays. The reroutes. The inspections," she said slowly. "They're not luck." "No." "Then who is doing it?" Ariv stood, the quiet taxi driver replaced, just slightly, by something older, sharper. "No," he said. "But this is where I stop hiding." Celira's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" "It means," Ariv replied, "you're about to learn why humans don't threaten." Outside, Neo Mumbai's lights dimmed for a fraction of a second as systems shifted priorities. The city didn't panic. It adjusted. And somewhere far beyond Earth, Lord Zyril Vieketh smiled in confidence, unaware that he had just crossed the line that separated influence from consequence. The sanctions hit at dawn. Not with explosions or alarms, but with silence. Cargo vessels bound for Earth held position just outside regulated space. Fuel tenders delayed docking. Financial transfers flagged for extended verification. Across the interstellar feeds, analysts spoke in careful language about temporary disruptions and ongoing reviews. Lord Zyril Vieketh had thrown his weight onto the scale. In Neo Mumbai, Celira watched the reports scroll across the apartment wall, her luminous skin paling. "This is bigger than pressure," she said. "He's trying to isolate you." "He's trying to isolate Earth," Ariv corrected, standing at the window as if he could see beyond the clouds to the waiting ships. "He thinks we'll negotiate." "And will the Council allow this?" she asked. "They already have," Ariv said quietly. "By doing nothing." Celira turned to him, heart racing. "You said this was where you stopped hiding." Ariv didn't answer immediately. He walked to the center of the room and activated a system Celira hadn't seen before. The air shimmered, resolving into a layered hollow interface, clean, precise, and vast. Her breath caught. This wasn't a local network. It wasn't even planetary. It was everything. Trade lanes unfolded in three-dimensional space. Maintenance cycles pulsed in soft rhythms. Logistics nodes flared and dimmed as trillions of micro-decisions flowed through them. Names appeared, not governments, not empires, but systems. Helios Nexus, Transit Authority Mesh, Unified Standards Consortium. Sailira stared. This is impossible. It's just organized, Ariv said. He moved through the interface with practiced ease, gestures fluid and confident. When humanity joined the Galactic Union, we were underestimated. So we built quietly. We standardized processes. We offered efficiency instead of authority. You made yourselves indispensable, she whispered. Yes. And you. Her voice trembled now. What are you to this? Ariv stopped moving. He turned to face her fully. I founded Helios Nexus, he said. I designed the backbone protocols. I keep them aligned. The words landed like gravity. Sailira felt dizzy. You're the reason trade works. One of many, he corrected. But yes. If something moves smoothly between worlds, my systems probably touched it. She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. I married you to escape power. And found it anyway, he said gently. I'm sorry. She searched his face, expecting arrogance, triumph, anything to justify her shock. There was none. Only concern. Why tell me now? She asked. Because Zyril forced my hand, Ariv replied. And because I won't make decisions about your life without your consent. Her throat tightened. What decision? He gestured to the glowing web. I can end this in minutes. One command. She looked back at the interface, understanding dawning. You could cut him off. I could cut off everyone like him, Ariv said. No violence. No fleets. Just disconnection. And the cost. Ariv's expression darkened. The galaxy learns who holds the switch. Sailira hugged herself, mind racing. If you do this, you can never be invisible again. I know. And humans. They'll be seen, he said. Whether they want to be or not. Silence fell between them, thick with consequence. Sailira thought of Lord Zyril's arrogance. Of the attempt on her life. Of a galaxy that treated power like inheritance instead of responsibility. You didn't choose this, she said softly. No. But he did, she finished. Ariv met her gaze. What do you want? The question startled her. Not because it was asked, but because it was real. She took a deep breath. I want him to never be able to do this to anyone again. Ariv nodded slowly. Then we don't make it loud. He turned back to the interface, fingers hovering over a single node labeled contingency, human priority routing. Sailira's pulse thundered. What happens when you activate that? Ariv smiled faintly. Nothing dramatic. He pressed the command. Across the galaxy, systems adjusted. Not shut down. Not destroyed. Adjusted. Zyril's trade lanes rerouted for optimization. His shipments delayed for verification. His financial transactions flagged for standards mismatch. Each action legal. Each one reasonable. Together, they were devastating. On Vorthane, Lord Zyril stared at his collapsing reports in disbelief. Why are my assets freezing? He demanded. The aide's voice shook. My lord, our partners are no longer receiving priority routing. Restore it. We can't, the aide whispered. The protocols won't allow it. Zyril's eyes widened. Who controls the protocols? The aide swallowed. Humans. Back in Neo Mumbai, Sailira felt it, not through data, but through absence. The pressure eased. The threat receded like a tide pulling back from shore. She exhaled slowly. It's done. It's begun, Ariv corrected. He'll panic now. And when he does? Ariv's gaze hardened. The hidden boss no longer hidden. Then the galaxy will learn something important. Sailira stepped closer, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away. What? She asked. That humanity doesn't conquer, Ariv said. We maintain. And anyone who forgets that. He let the sentence trail off as another alert chimed. This one marked Galactic Council. Emergency session requested. Celira looked at him, a mixture of awe and fear and something warmer. I married a taxi driver. Ariv smiled, squeezing her hand gently. I warned you I wasn't ordinary. Outside, the city continued its quiet rhythm, unaware that somewhere beyond the clouds, empires were beginning to stall. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy waited on a human who preferred to stop at red lights. The galaxy did not collapse. That was the most terrifying part. No stars went dark. No fleets exploded. No alarms rang across the void. Instead, things simply slowed. Trade vessels waited longer for clearance. Fuel allocations arrived out of sequence. Manufacturing schedules slipped by hours, then days. For ordinary citizens, it was an inconvenience. For the powerful, it was catastrophe. Lord Zyril Vieketh stood in the command chamber of his observatory, surrounded by frantic aides and cascading data streams. Every display told the same story in different words. Delayed. Pending. Under review. This is sabotage, Zyril snarled. It's compliance, one aide corrected weakly. The systems are enforcing human standard optimization protocols. Override them. We can't, the aide said, trembling. They're universal. Zyril's fists clenched. Since when? Since humans standardized interstellar logistics, the aide replied. Centuries ago. Zyril froze. Centuries. He had never bothered to look back that far. Across aristocratic worlds, panic spread in whispers and emergency councils. Supply chains once taken for granted revealed their fragility. Luxury goods vanished first. Then essentials. Political favors dried up as quickly as the resources that sustained them. Humans noticed none of it. On Earth, life continued. Markets remained stocked. Transit ran on schedule. Power grids hummed steadily. Humanity's infrastructure had been built for self-reliance long before interstellar trade ever existed. Celira watched the unfolding chaos from Ariv's apartment, stunned by its restraint. You didn't cut them off, she said. No, Ariv agreed. We deprioritized them. She shivered. That's worse. Yes. Lord Zyril made one final, desperate move. A public transmission. His image filled every major interstellar feed, robes immaculate, expression controlled but eyes burning. This disruption is an act of aggression, he declared. The Galactic Union must intervene against human overreach. The response was immediate and human. A single figure appeared on the counter feed. No regalia. No titles displayed. Just a calm man seated at a plain desk. Ariv. The galaxy held its breath. I am not here to threaten anyone, Ariv said evenly. I am here to explain a system you have relied on without understanding. Data bloomed behind him. Clear, undeniable. Humans do not own the galaxy's trade, he continued. We maintain it. We repair it. We standardize it so you don't have to. Zyril's image flickered, fury barely contained. You abuse that role, Zyril spat. No, Ariv replied. You did. When you weaponized access, you violated the very standards that keep the system fair. The feeds erupted with murmurs. Ariv's gaze hardened slightly. So the system corrected. Zyril roared. You think you can rule us from the shadows? Ariv shook his head. No. We already proved we don't need to rule at all. The transmission ended. Silence followed, thick, heavy, irreversible. In Neo Mumbai, Celira exhaled slowly. You didn't humiliate him. I didn't need to, Ariv said. The truth did. Alerts continued to arrive, this time not from enemies, but from allies. Request. Standards realignment request. Human mediation request. Protocol restoration. They're lining up, Celira said. Yes, Ariv replied. Because the galaxy just remembered who keeps the lights on. On Vorthane, Lord Zyral's empire collapsed in real time. Assets seized for non-compliance. Titles suspended pending review. Allies distanced themselves, eager to regain priority status. His name, once spoken with reverence, now carried liability. The final notice arrived quietly. Status: aristocratic authority suspended reason. Systemic abuse. Zyral stared at the words, disbelief hollowing him out. A human. A taxi driver. He laughed once. Broken, bitter. So this is what power looks like now. Back on Earth, the city slept. Celira stood beside Ariv on the balcony, the night air cool against her skin. You changed everything. Ariv shook his head. No. I reminded them. Of what? That the galaxy doesn't run on crowns, he said. It runs on cooperation. She turned to him, eyes shining. And now? Now we restore balance, he replied. Quietly. She smiled then, not the smile of someone escaping power, but of someone choosing partnership. Below them, traffic lights changed in perfect rhythm. Cargo moved. Life continued. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And humanity, once again, chose not to boast. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to impress. A vast ring of light floated in open space, each segment representing a member species, its architecture a declaration of culture and power. Some glowed with crystalline splendor. Others pulsed with organic warmth or metallic severity. The human section was modest. A simple arc of steel and glass, functional and unadorned. Celira stood beside Ariv as the session came to order, her luminous skin reflecting the shifting colors of 100 worlds. Once, she would have been overwhelmed by this place. Now, she understood it too well. Human representative, the council speaker intoned, you have disrupted interstellar commerce on an unprecedented scale. Ariv inclined his head politely. We corrected a misuse of shared systems. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. You acted without authorization, another delegate said sharply. Ariv met the accusation calmly. The protocols authorize themselves. That's how neutrality is preserved. A pause followed, long, uncomfortable. The council speaker shifted. Lord Zyral Vieketh has been stripped of aristocratic authority pending investigation. Celira felt a quiet release in her chest. The threat that had chased her across stars was gone, not slain, not banished, but rendered irrelevant. Humanity's role must be clarified, the speaker continued. You wield influence beyond your stated status. Ariv nodded. Then let us state it clearly. The chamber dimmed as a projection appeared, human-built infrastructure spanning the galaxy, clean lines, open standards, shared access. We do not seek dominance, Ariv said. We seek reliability, stability, fair access. And if the council refuses your terms? A delegate demanded. Ariv's answer was gentle. Then nothing changes. That was when the room understood. Power that did not need permission was power already exercised. After hours of negotiation, the resolution passed. Humanity recognized as a neutral infrastructure authority. Trade standards protected from aristocratic manipulation. Civilian unions upheld without exception. It was not a victory parade. It was something better. Back on Earth, Neo Mumbai welcomed them home with indifference, the highest compliment the city could offer. Ariv parked his taxi in its usual place beneath the tower. The engine ticked as it cooled, a familiar sound grounding him. Celira watched him lock the vehicle, confusion creasing her features. That's it. That's it, he confirmed. No security detail. No convoy. I don't need one, he said. Neither do you. They rode the lift in comfortable silence. When the apartment door closed behind them, Celira turned to him slowly. You could have taken a seat on the council, she said. They would have given it to you. Yes. But you didn't. Ariv met her gaze. Power is easier to keep when you don't sit on a throne. She smiled softly. "You're going back to driving?" "Yes." She laughed then, warm and genuine. "I married the most powerful human in the galaxy." "And still pay rent on time," he replied. She stepped closer, her skin glowing softly. Not fear, not anger, but something gentle and sure. "Our marriage, it doesn't have to be temporary." Ariv studied her face, searching for doubt. He found none. "No," he said quietly. "It doesn't." Outside, the city lights pulsed as a cargo convoy passed overhead, moving smoothly along lanes Ariv had helped design long ago. Celira leaned against him. "The galaxy will never see humans the same way again." Ariv looked out at the endless sprawl of lights. "That's fine. We don't need them to." She followed his gaze. "What do humans need?" He thought for a moment. "To be left alone when we choose. And trusted when we're needed." She nodded, understanding at last. The taxi console chimed softly, a new fare request. Ariv smiled and picked up his keys. "The universe still needs moving," he said. As he opened the door, Celira called after him, amusement in her voice. "Drive safely, husband." He glanced back, eyes warm. "Always." The door closed. The taxi pulled into traffic, stopping patiently at a red light. Above the city, stars burned steadily. And across the galaxy, systems ran smoothly, maintained by a species that never needed applause to prove its worth.